What do you think of the gameplay, by the way? Because I know it's an RPG. So the the main thing that like clued me into the fact that it's probably really great and that I would really enjoy it is when someone described it as a combination of Persona 5 and Sekiro, which is like that sounds incredible. Is that similar to what you've experienced in playing it?
So I have like barely played Persona 5, and I have not played Sekiro at all.
Okay.
You're gonna kill me. Okay.
Well, I mean the Sekiro
yeah.
I've heard because there's like parrying in the game, even though it's turn based.
I completely understand what they were talking about, though. I should have said that. I do understand what they're talking about. It's turn based, but so I'm playing it on expert, right?
Mhm.
So what I've experienced is, especially being early on, the turn based combat is, it's pretty much what you like could imagine. But then when it's the enemy's turn to attack you, you can either dodge an attack or parry an attack. And dodging, and I might just be trash. But I'm playing on the hardest difficulty. And if you don't dodge, if you don't parry, like if you don't do one of those things, you will die. Period. Okay.
Well,
like it's like
you are playing on expert difficulty.
But
so.
Also remember, I'm at the beginning. There's not much that it's not like I haven't organize my gear correctly or something like that. Like I'm talking about when you get into your first fight, if you don't like there's little like, there's a bit of a tutorial, but when you get into your first real fight, if you don't dodge or parry, you're going to die.
Right.
Like you're going to, and I love that about the game because it makes it feel like the threats are actually a threat. Like it makes it feel just like, I don't know, there's like it's kind of scary when you're about to get attacked because it's like, oh my god, if I don't time this right, I'm done. But so the dodging and the parrying does kind of feel like something you see in a FromSoft type of experience.
That's interesting. I feel like I wonder how much of that is influenced by the difficulty level that you're playing at, but I can say that in Persona games, a large part of at least Persona 5 and 4 is like chaining attacks, like chaining weaknesses, so that the enemy doesn't even get an opportunity to attack. So that way you're basically playing defensively by playing offensively and exploiting those weaknesses. So I wonder if it's similar to that.
Yeah, in this game, when you attack, when you do not a regular attack, but when you use skills, skills have different like timings, so like little like quick time event type things that you do. And they're the same every time you do it. So like if you do like, skill number 1, it's gonna be the same button press cadence pattern, whatever you want to call it. So you can kind of like learn it and get used to it. But I think it adds to it because it kind of feels like me getting the rhythm down for certain skills feels like I'm just getting better with the skill. And it also just, again, and this could just be because I'm playing it on expert, but I feel like if I don't time those things like correctly, if I miss one, I'm dead. Like, it really feels like you need to lock in, like, and I don't know. I feel like that might not be exclusive to the expert difficulty, but I hope it isn't.
Well, I think it's cool when turn-based games have that real-time element. I think it adds a lot to it, even when it's like small things like quick time events. Like I played through Sea of Stars 1 year ago, and it was kind of similar to this, where you had to time a button press to like defend yourself against enemy attacks, and just like having the combination of like thinking on your feet alongside the strategy of turn-based stuff, I thought was really fun. And that was just like I don't know, it was like a pixel game. So translating that to like a 3D game like this, I think is really cool. And it looks like the gameplay outside of the combat is mostly just like a 3D, like not platformer, but you're running around these 3D environments, right? Like how would you say the exploration is in the game?
So the little bit that I've experienced with the exploration is it's not. So one of the things I really liked, right, is in the beginning of the game, and this might changed. It has already changed a little bit now that I've gotten out of the prologue, but it feels like they want you to just move through the environments. It doesn't feel like one of those games where like, oh, make sure you search every, nick and cranny and find every bit of, resources you can to build up your character. Like, it feels like the game is saying just experience the environment and just move forward. And I like that. So it's like there is a little bit of oh, there's that thing over there, let me go pick that up. But it hasn't been too much of that at all. It really feels like but I like that because it kind of just I like it's kind of in The Last of Us where like the majority of the game you're checking drawers and stuff like that and you're playing stuff all the time. But then when there's like a set piece going on or something more story based, story centered, whatever going on, right? More of a story moment. There's not many collectibles around the map. It's like do story, experience story, and this game feels like it's doing that for the majority of the time, and I like that. I like how story focused it is. Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Nice. You feel like it's more linear then?
Yeah, it's super linear from what I've experienced.
That could be nice because when you get RPGs like this, a lot of the time they tend to get kind of bloated with side activities. I mean, for me, having a more linear RPG experience is kind of appealing because I know I won't have to spend a crazy amount of time on it, just getting random items and stuff. So I think a lot of people would agree with me in that. That's a nice approach.
Yeah, I like linear. I also wanted to talk about, I wanted to really get into this, going back to turn-based gameplay, because there's a conversation going on about turn-based gameplay, because this game is huge and it's turn-based, so people of course are bringing up older games and newer games and the direction things have been going in the industry. And I want to start by saying I don't usually like turn-based gameplay. I really loved Baldur's Gate 3, and that kind of opened things up to me a bit more when it comes to if I heard something was turn-based 4 years ago, I would have been like, oh, it's done, I don't care anymore. But now I'm more open to it, but I still do prefer real-time combat. And we said with this game, it has those kind of real-time elements in the combat. But honestly, even though I'm enjoying the turn-based gameplay in this game, I think it's really cool for just how the characters can be presented, and just the feel of the game. It's cool. It's cool. It works. But honestly, if there was a version of the game that played more like Final Fantasy VII Remake, I would probably be playing that version. And I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think decisions like combat, especially in RPGs, are something that it feels like a lot of the times when a game is being built, they work from the ground up from combat. So it's hard for me to say that I think it would be better if it was real time, because I think when they went about creating the game, I think they probably wanted to make a turn-based game with maybe some real-time elements, whereas Final Fantasy Remake and Rebirth is a reimagining of the classic style of combat, done intentionally to bring that style of gameplay to a modern audience. So I do think that with Clair Obscur, it seems like they approached it in wanting to make a turn-based game. I can't say whether it would be improved by having more real-time elements, but I think the real-time elements that they do have are probably a way of them saying, the I go, you go format is a little dated, but also there are ways that it can still be fun and improved upon with modern design sensibilities. So I personally don't think there's any problem with turn-based games. I love turn-based games. Baldur's Gate 3 is a good example, but also something even simpler like Sea of Stars, like I said.
That was, when you said that earlier, I forgot what that. I did play a little bit of that. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and that game has real-time elements like defending and basically like lessening the damage that enemy attacks do to you if you can time a block, and then also like a healing spell, like if you can time that correctly, it does more healing to you and party members, which I think is in some like classic turn-based games. But they also added other elements in that game that added to the turn-based formula without feeling like it needed to rely on real-time things. So in Sea of Stars, there was this really cool combat mechanic where every time you hit an enemy, like an orb, a power orb would come out of them, and it's kind of like laying on the battlefield. And then you could choose at any time for a character to absorb that power orb and make their attacks stronger or their heals stronger or whatever you want it to be. It gave you a different element of strategy where if you know an enemy is weak to one damage type, you can leave these power orbs on the ground, and then when it's that character's turn to attack, you know you have enough mana for that attack, you can use the power orbs, absorb them into that character specifically, and then dish out a more powerful version of that attack. And that just made the turn-based combat a lot more deeper in a way that didn't feel like it had to rely on real-time things like parrying. Not that I feel like that's like a betrayal of what a turn-based game is. I think it can add a lot to it. But it was an advancement of the turn-based formula that didn't feel like it had to break the bounds of what made that type of game special, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of creative ways to iterate on that turn-based design philosophy. And I think it's really cool that they did it with real-time parrying. But I think if you were to add real-time combat, I think it would be a very different game, and I think it would appeal to a different audience too. Because, like you said, with Final Fantasy Remake, it's real time with elements of the turn-based tactics, and honestly, I think that makes it an action game with RPG elements, and I think that's a totally different genre. And I think what's nice about that is that Rebirth and Remake offer the flexibility to play in whatever way you want, so you can rely heavily on the ATB bar with those skills and abilities, or you can learn the quick shortcuts and play it more like an action game. And I think that's the genius of that style of gameplay. So I think it's less black and white than making a turn-based game real time or vice versa. I think there's that a lot more thought has to go into it, but it would have to be approached with that design philosophy rather than, you know, like that's not a decision you can make late into development, you know.
What I was just thinking about just now, it's like before you brought up a Sea of Stars again, because I don't know how I forgot about that game, but I was thinking the thing with Baldur's Gate is like when I'm playing Baldur's Gate and I'll have like, you know, a friend, cousin, whatever, they'll say like oh like why didn't they make this game like real time? And it's like Baldur's Gate cannot be played in real time. There's no way you're doing it. And that made me think that, okay, I like turn-based when clearly this thing could only have been turn-based. But then you brought up Sea of Stars, and it's like, no, that game, they could have done something different, but like that game was turn-based was what it like. It was a creative choice. It wasn't like some necessity. It was just like, this is what we're making. And I think that's really cool. And so that kind of changed my perspective on it. But then thinking about Final Fantasy and thinking about you know, Clair Obscur again, the reason why I think the idea of real-time combat stands out so much to me with Clair is I can see how the Final Fantasy VII like remake combat style, specifically remake, I can't speak too much to Rebirth, but with Remake, they got it down so well where the abilities felt like this real blend of like real time and turn based.
Yeah,
leaning more towards real time. And I feel like Clair Obscur from what I've played so far, like 3 hours I've played, 3 to 4 hours. It's like I think that they could have done that. And when I say I think they could have done that, I mean like the game as it stands is not that far from that. Like it doesn't feel like, I don't know, it just, the direction just doesn't seem that far. And this could really just be from this is a lot of, you know, just my preference, and like it could also be just a lack of time into Clair. But I think that I think that if Clair Obscur had Final Fantasy VII Remakes combat, because right now it's already the highest rated game of the year, right? And it sold 1 million copies in 3 days. That's insane. If this game had Final Fantasy VII Remakes combat, I think this game would have been like one of the greatest games of the generation. I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to even say it. It would have been one of the greatest games ever made. Period. Like, and I think that the turn-based is. I have to play it more. I have to play it more.
Yeah, I think it's just tough to say like, oh, if it had this style of combat, because remake and rebirth style of combat is so meticulously crafted and so well thought out that I feel like transplanting it from one game to another, like, yes, if they did that, it would be great, but doing that would be the bulk of the work that they would have had to put into the game because of how complex that would be. So like if they made a Chrono Trigger remake with the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth combat, it would be the greatest game ever made. Like, yes, but they would have to put the work in to do that, and that's like a whole different game.
I think the question is like, and this is what people are talking about too, is should people are already asking, should Final Fantasy have moved away from turn-based and gone where it is now? Would you want to see Final Fantasy's gameplay go more into its like turn-based roots or stay where it is?
I think, well, I mean, they've shown what they can do when they try to blend turn-based and real-time with the remake series. And I don't know why that's, not the approach they're taking with the mainline games going forward, because everyone loves that and it's great. And it's like a genius battle system. I think that's the road that they should take, is just continuing to iterate on that. I have noticed that in Rebirth, the systems in Remake are already pretty complicated with the amount of things you can do and each character having their own combat style, which makes it great, but it also makes it really overwhelming too. And especially in Rebirth, they've improved the elements in Remake and then added more stuff on top of it, so it can feel really overwhelming, the number of things you have at your disposal.
That's why I'm not playing it. Yeah. Like I do really want to play it, but that's why it's been in my backlog for so long, is because I just feel like I need to jump into all of these different systems. Like, I don't even know what like 2/3 of this stuff does. Like,
yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's also kind of tough, especially when in Rebirth you're unlocking new characters at a pretty steady pace, and then that's like a whole new skill set to learn, a new skill tree to unlock. I think it's great. I just think it's a little overwhelming, and maybe for some people that just is an opportunity to do multiple playthroughs or whatever. But I think what they've created is really ingenious, and I think if they were to go any route, it would be iterating on that combat style. But also, I think it couldn't hurt to test the waters with a more classically styled turn-based system, maybe something similar to Clair Obscur or Sea of Stars, where it takes that distinctive like battle system back and forth and then adds some stuff on top of it, or adds new strategy elements, or whatever they want to put into it that makes it unique. I think there's more of an audience for that than they're giving credit to. Because making Final Fantasy, 16, the latest one, making that basically an action game, you're kind of letting down a lot of people who go into Final Fantasy expecting an RPG experience, and the folks that you're trying to cater to with the real-time combat might not find Final Fantasy as a series as appealing. It's like there's always going to be a trade-off, but I think they have to pick a lane either way, because in Final Fantasy 16 it seems like the RPG elements that they want to introduce are so half-baked that they should have just gone all in on it being an action game rather than masquerading as an RPG, when it seems like it's more like a Devil May Cry than a Final Fantasy. So they just need to pick a lane, really.
Yeah, and I won't even like. It's funny, like everything you're saying is stuff that I've said with like other friends before too. Is like that game is the illusion of an RPG. It is not like that. That's not an RPG. If you like, I know the term RPG, like it's something that people are arguing about all the time, whether or not something's an RPG or not. Let's be real. Like if that game is an RPG, like what is God of War? Like
Yeah.
God of War, it must be like a hardcore RPG if that's an RPG. It's like Final Fantasy 16 is like, okay, no, I won't do it. I won't do it. I almost went into it. I'm not gonna go into it. But yeah, I think Clair Obscur. I would not want to see Clair Obscur go into what Final Fantasy 16 is. Final Fantasy 7 remake. I think that would have been great. But I think like what you said is like, that's not an easy task. That's kind of like, it's like if I was saying, what if Ghost of Yote is, just as deep as Red Dead Redemption 2? Like, it's like, I don't, yeah, I don't, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it could be done, but I think that would have to be done pretty early in the development process to recreate something with that level of polish and thought behind it that the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth combat system has, because that's really just a piece of art into itself, the combat in that game, in those games. Yeah. Speaking of art and striking visuals, the marathon